Uh-oh. That ain't me. That ain't me. I don't know who's doing that. Who's doing that?
That's Scott.
Nah.
It ain't me.
Who's playing the shit in the background? You're all muted
I
now.
believe it's
Top
Scott.
Dog. Oh,
No,
was it Top Dog?
not me.
It looked like it was
boys and
coming from
girls,
Scott.
This is the weather
could be
report for May 13th, 2021. And none of us thought this was a good idea. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We're just a bunch of crazy atheists. Absolutely no foundation to our beliefs at all. And we decided to gather today and discuss. Have you guys got your shit straightened out over there? Whoever was... Everybody's muted now, except for Top Dog and David. Okay, yeah. David's good.
I'm good. Yeah.
Do we dare unmute Scott? Let's try it. No, I can't unmute him. Can't unmute your guest because he chose to mute himself. Yeah. Well, that ain't no fucking fun. Okay.
You know he's having a problem.
Yeah. Anyway, guys. So, what's happening? So I heard that Smokey Saint was saying something about me today, and I'm sure they were wonderful things. And I just want him to know that he's back on my Christmas card list. And Christmas is a real special time, guys, around here. So Smokey will get a Christmas card this year. I'm sure he was speaking kindly of me. I know him. I know him well.
Well,
and what
probably
else?
only I think the only reason why is, well, Praise kind of brought you into the picture in his his video or his stream last night, right?
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, and he Praise did whatever. He was doing his streaming, he was doing all kinds of stuff, and for some reason, I can't remember why you came up. There was for some reason you came up, and then Smokey was in the side chat, and then he went on to Smokey's channel and got some of his old videos. You actually had a little debate type thing, and that's when you and Smokey were kind of going at it a little bit. That was kind of right at the very beginning. You were calling him Stinky Snake and stuff like that. That was going way back. So Praise, got those videos out and he was playing them. So that's kind of how it came about, how you came up.
Was he doing it on that Darth Dawkins video that he did?
Yeah, this was his, his most, I'd have to look to see. Praise has been doing 2 videos a day now lately, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And then he had this little blurb that said he was going to take 3 days off, and then he did 2 streams.
Right. Well, you'd have to scan through it. Honestly, I didn't timestamp anything, but he was, I don't know. He Praise. He was just saying a bunch of garbage. But that's how it came up. I'd have to look back to see why you even came into the conversation for some reason. I don't know.
Which stream was it? Was it the reviewing Darth on Evolution?
Yes, actually, yes. As a matter of fact, that's now I'm remembering. Now it's coming back to me. The reason why is Praise was talking about Darth, right? And he was reviewing Darth's conversation with Andrew. So that's what it started out as. And of course, Andrew is always a part of this channel. So then, of course, that gets related to this channel. He's saying, oh, you watch, and actually the thing that he was reviewing, right across the screen, that ticker that goes across the screen there, LilPP there put a thing in there. You watch, this is going to go on the weather report tomorrow. Make sure you put this in there or whatever. And that was showed up on Praise's review. So that's how it kind of all, how you got involved in it, this channel anyway.
Okay, yeah, I commented when Praise first started that video. I commented on it, and here's what happened. Okay, I was watching, I was reviewing Darth Dawkins with his interchange with Andrew, Rational Empiricist, on LilPP's channel the day before, right? And then I see this stream reviewing Darth Dawkins on evolution, and I tuned in, and sure enough, Praise is going on about how wonderful this argument that Darth came up with against Andrew. And I had just been cringing about how bad the argument was. And then Praise decides to do a whole stream on how wonderful it is. And I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, I mean, it was like the worst argument ever for, what the hell was he arguing for? Oh, he was trying to show Andrew that he was inconsistent in his thinking because
Yeah.
So what Darth did is he went through and he did this back of the envelope probability calculations.
Yeah.
Which he did pretty well at the math. He fucked up just once, and then he comes down and he says, "Oh, okay, so you accept that evolution happened with this ridiculous low probability, but then when you think about gravity, you refer to laws of the universe and regularity, right? So you have a foundation for that, but you have no foundation for biology." So he was trying to show Andrew that he was being inconsistent. Is that the gist of the argument?
Well, was that the gravity argument? You're talking about the hammer?
Yeah, about the hammer. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you wouldn't think that the hammer falling to the center of the earth is based on a bunch of probabilities. And it was like the stupidest argument I've ever heard. And then Praise goes on and starts talking about what a great argument it was. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of things wrong with that argument, right? Number one, the back of the envelope calculations about the probability. They keep doing that, and it's just stupid. It's ignorant.
Well, I would say the probability of dropping a hammer is 0.99999999999. I mean, that's a silly comparison. And of course, I gave my jet engine or my jet airplane analogy. If you're going to bring gravity into it, then the probabilities are like the probability of finding where and how an airplane that blew up in the sky scattered along the ocean floor. And they use Bayesian calculations for that. That's how they discovered the Titanic. That's how they discovered some of these nuclear subs that sank in the Atlantic, maybe in the Pacific too. But anyway, I read a book about it once, and they basically used Bayesian probabilistic type calculations, and it's based on gravity, wind speed at the time, currents at the time, and things like that. That's where your probability comes in. And so, no, you don't throw probability aside when you talk about the law of gravity. It's just that the probability is 0.99999 when it's a simple case of dropping a hammer to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, but conflating the two arguments like Darth did was just silly, and it shows that
very, very middle thinking. I doubt his probability calculations anyway. In a world where there's lots of things and lots of time, I'm sure an actual statistician could, who deals with cellular biology could probably educate all of us about that, but I don't buy the probability arguments that much.
What is the probability that all the people on the earth right now came into being? All of the people on the earth, all of us individuals, you and me and Top Dog and all of us, just the way we are. Let's calculate the probability of that happening. What are you going to end up with? How many zeros are you going to end up with? More than there are particles in the universe. It's like, and then to conflate that with the laws, basically the regularity of the
those
universe,
arguments are just garbage.
Yeah, it was garbage. But so Darth had
right
a few moments where he thought he was really showing Andrew how inconsistent. And the nice thing about Andrew is Andrew came back with,
and that's typical Darth. Darth conflates.
Yeah. I didn't realize that they were playing fucking my showing the book videos from old Smokey stuff on Praise's channel last night. So I just found the part where they're actually showing videos with me in it, and it's like, what the fuck are they? What are they doing? What is their point? Oh my god! They're don't they haven't they found any new ammo on me yet? I give them some every day.
Well, just so you know, I mean, well, hopefully it makes you feel good. Speed.
Yeah,
you have free rent in all of these guys' heads. They bring your name up constantly. LilPP always does, right? The fact that he will bring your name up. And it's not just when it comes to any scientific stuff, which obviously most of this channel focuses on that. It even gets down to LilPP brings up your name saying, oh my God, we don't want to give, Speed and his gang any ammunition when they're just arguing over biblical stuff. They're arguing over biblical stuff. And he's all concerned that we're going to have ammunition. So you have free rent, and then look at SFT. He just did a whole thing on your video last night, or he was posting stuff today on the video you did last night. So you got free rent there. You got free rent in Smokey's head. You got free rent. Look at Praise. So I mean,
the funny part is John Maddox always predicts, this is going to be the topic of the weather report tomorrow. And it's sort of a self-fulfilling prediction, because when he does that, I'm like, okay. you know what I mean? But
exactly.
Every time he does something, he says, this is going to be the topic of the weather report tomorrow. And then as soon as he says that, it actually does become the topic of the weather report.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so easy. I mean, you can just take any one of their videos. Any Christian video can be a topic on this channel anytime you wish, because they just make fools of themselves, but yet they have no humility whatsoever. They have no shame, right? It's like they just, I don't know. Yeah.
They double down on their ignorance.
Yeah, exactly. They just
when I see SFB Mod and Smokey are going at it in chat while all this is occurring, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, obviously they hate each other. They, you know, but Joel, he just stirs shit up with everybody. He can't get along, boy. That guy's got some problems.
It's amazing. So I stopped into a Bible study on the Trinity today, hoping that they would explain the Trinity to me. And they really didn't, but it was kind of interesting. Apparently there's like 5 passages in the Old Testament, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff in the New Testament. And then for the next 300 years, various Christian writers kind of fleshed in the Trinity. And then they split into a whole bunch of different sects. And I think the problem was that they couldn't decide what part of flesh or God Jesus was, right? Peter, do you know anything about this?
Sorry, I just stepped in. I was looking for something. Can you ask me again?
Oh. Yeah, we're trying to figure out the Trinity, like how the whole Trinity war came up, and there were a whole bunch of Christian writers. I've got like screenshots that I took of the Bible study, and they were showing these, various was that Nicene? What is that called?
From what I know, this is something that the Catholic Church probably snuck in because people were starting to complain because obviously Jesus goes against the first commandment. you shall have no other gods before me. And then Jesus comes along and says, you can't get to the Father but through me, which is the exact opposite of what the first commandment says. So they had to find a way to make that work. And that's from what I've learned, that's how they snuck that in, that it was the Trinity and that Jesus was actually God, so he wasn't a different God. And then,
and apparently
in imagination.
Apparently the first criticism that it was pantheism, that that they had multiple gods, happened around 200 AD or something. It was one of these commissions or something. The Nicene Creed, and then they had a bunch of writers that were talking about it. Celsus, a hostile witness. Then there was Origen. Okay, I can't remember which one, but it was around 200 AD that the first criticism that, okay, you guys you have multiple gods now because of the Jesus thing, right? And there's Irenaeus, 177 AD. He weighed in on it, and so it's really interesting. Who was Jesus?
Then
there's a whole
speed. I grew up. The church I grew up in was a Trinity church. I remember when I was a Christian, I didn't really have an issue with the topic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as an atheist, I can try to. What exactly is confusing about it to you?
Well, okay, what the hell are the three different things? Okay, there's the Son. Is he a separate being? Jesus?
So
does he have a separate mind?
There's another dimension where all our souls are supposed to be, and then they're it's
the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's the Trinity, right?
Yeah. So the Father and the Son can obviously talk to each other, right?
Right, so they're two different people.
Yes.
Persons.
Just like if you're a computer avatar like me, am I totally different than this character?
I think that the confusing part is that they're also not different, right? Because they're different people with different emotions, but they also both know each other. Like they're not different. You have both dichotomies simultaneously is the idea of the Trinity, to what I remember.
Just think of this avatar as Jesus, and then I'm like the God or something, right? The real human being is like that kind of idea.
One God being, and he separates into two avatars, the Father and the Son. Okay, how is that different from me and my sons? Are they two new avatars and they're part of me? I don't.
Well,
I could consider this character my creation.
Sorry,
kind of.
Go ahead,
It'd be my son. It'd be like this character could be my son, like in a weird sense.
Yeah, but I don't think my sons are.
Well, the obvious difference,
like adopted son,
to the Trinity would be that your son has his own opinions, but your son doesn't know your opinions, right? Like intimately, you know your opinions differently than your son knows your opinions. Correct?
Okay.
Whereas Jesus and God simultaneously have the same thoughts, but also can have different thoughts. It is confusing. I get it because there's no there's no good analogy, right? But
it doesn't work
with me.
It doesn't work because in the Bible, and I forgot what the verse is, but in the Bible it says Jesus is talking to God and the Holy Spirit is present. So Jesus is talking to himself while he himself is present. He's asking God questions that he obviously does not know the answer to. So if they are all the same, then Jesus wouldn't have needed to ask. And the reason I've heard this explained, and I think this is probably the best explanation. They say Jesus is kind of an avatar. So pretty much like when you do a game, the character that you are in the game is also you.
Yes.
But the character in the game knows everything you know. There's no way around it. The character is limited to what he can do within the game. That's the difference. But the character knows literally everything you know because you are the character. That doesn't work with Jesus.
So a false, God, I can't think of the word here. An issue with that analogy is that, like, the character in the game, the avatar in the game, cannot break the rules. But obviously, Jesus could break the rules of being human, right? He could.
Well,
we're going here assuming Jesus existed exactly as the Bible describes him.
But the character in the game can also break the rules. If some games have cheat codes,
well, yeah,
so you can break the rules as long as you know the cheat codes. Your character in your game knows the cheat codes. The only thing that would line up with Jesus and God is that the character is restricted to the environment it finds itself in. It can't jump out of the computer to go somewhere else. So that worked. But the fact that
coming out of the tomb, went through the cloth, whatever it's supposed to be, the Torah, or
the fact that Jesus has to ask Dad and get answers from that doesn't work. Because he shouldn't have needed to ask, because he already knows everything Dad knows or the Holy Ghost knows.
What verse are you talking about, Peter?
Yeah, as I said, I forgot which one it was. So there is a verse in the Bible where Jesus is asking God and the Holy Spirit is there. Would
you be opposed to someone saying that is sort of, it's not Jesus actually being confused, more so the way the writers wrote the point they're trying to make, like a poetic question as opposed to like a actual question? Would you be opposed to that sort of response?
But I think that would be a cop out. So why would you need to do that in this particular way? Why couldn't Jesus, if he was God, if Jesus was God, which he denied in the Bible several times that he wasn't God, but let's say that he was, why wouldn't he speak for the Father? That would have solved everything. That would have taken away any doubts. The Jews would have to accept him as the Messiah because now he's obviously God. But he didn't do that.
That takes away their free will, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because Adam.
Christian is a standard of
yeah, but that's a stupid remark, because Adam and Eve did have free will, and they knew and saw God, walked with God through the Garden of Eden, no problem whatsoever. Later, you got Abraham. Abraham is visited by God and two other guys. The other guys leave, and God has dinner with Abraham. Later in the Bible, he sits under a tree and cheats started wrestling someone and cheats on wrestling, so he wins. All these people have seen God and still have their free will. And if Jesus is God, all his disciples have seen God and still had their free will. It doesn't work. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
But that's not the part that I found actually confusing, because I can kind of figure out the God Jesus thing, sort of. I mean, I can imagine what the fuck is a Holy Spirit?
Yeah, and why is a Holy Spirit even necessary?
And he never says anything, right? He's just hanging around.
So
yeah, he has to be in you. Can
I try to answer the Bible verse?
He has to be in you for some reason. There's this weird thing that Christians have with kind of a homoerotic gameplay going on, because you have to have Jesus in you. You have to have the Holy Spirit.
And he's heterosexual too, obviously. I mean,
but so given that how things are lined up in Christianity, it's a patriarchy, right? So the man is the head of the family, and the man loves Jesus Christ, and the wife has to love the man like the man loves Jesus Christ. So the wife has to love the man like the man has to love Jesus Christ.
Speed. I think you may find Christians making the argument that, right, they're different parts for different purposes while also being the same part. And an example of that might be like something like 2 Corinthians 3:14, where it says, the grace of Lord Jesus, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit. Each part of the Trinity having essentially a different part to play in the overall
and that would work. And that would work, but you still don't have a workaround why it is that Jesus has to ask God, Jesus has to pray to God. That doesn't work if you're the same person.
Peter, I gave you an option and you just dismissed it, though. Why couldn't asking question be poetic?
But it's not the only. So the thing that I mentioned isn't the only thing where it's mentioned in the Bible. Jesus does pray to the Father. Yes. Why would he do that if he's praying to himself?
Without verses, I can't try to look up context here.
But the only thing that does is to tell people that Jesus and God are two distinct people, because otherwise that wouldn't be necessary, because Jesus would already know what God thinks and already know the answers to any prayer that he could direct towards his dad.
Yes.
If you're using the game analogy, you could still have a program that runs itself a little bit, but still you could direct it. So it's
in a game the character the character never asks you for help. Never.
But it
doesn't happen.
If it had its own AI, I'm saying that, but it still gets suggested and stuff.
Yeah, but then you got if it has an AI, it's a distinct, different entity. Whereas Jesus and God are one and the same. So you can't have Jesus with an AI, because then he wouldn't be God. He would be the AI.
I think it's been unfair to try to attack your AI analogy and therefore attack. That's kind of straw manning a bit, isn't it? Like if your analogy doesn't work, therefore the original concept doesn't work. I mean, that's
no. If a character is, if his intelligence comes from an AI, it doesn't come from the one that he's supposed to be an avatar of.
Yeah, but that's not 100%. He has those same issues. Is what I'm saying.
It comes from a different intelligence, and therefore the two are not the same.
They can have together though.
Here's what really happened. A bunch of people wrote a bunch of stuff, and they put it all together and called it the Bible. And ever since then, we've been trying to make all the people's stuff like match each other's stuff, right? So we've been trying to take a bunch of different authors and meld them together and try to make fucking sense out of what they said.
Yeah. The biggest problem with all of this is that the bunch of people who wrote the stuff weren't aware what the other one was writing. And that's where you get a problem if you're going to put all of that in one book and it has to match. And I don't know who
I call for a rewrite.
I recently saw a video where someone lined it out, and where different authors had tried to match up different books in the Bible with other books, and you can actually see the difference in writing in the different books.
Why hasn't Hollywood rebooted this thing already? Jesus.
Talk about Hollywood.
There was that Stephen Colbert movie that was pretty bad.
Check your email and let me know what you think.
Okay. I don't want to derail the conversation, but I can almost predict what LilPP's going to say. He always watches these streams, right? And he's going to look at this and he's going to listen to this conversation. He's going to say, "Oh, look at these idiot atheists arguing over the Bible." And the funny part about it is we're sitting here, trying to discuss the Bible and trying to figure out their religion and try to understand it better. Really, that's what we're doing here, right? Yeah. And what he's going to do is say, "Oh, look at this! They're trying to figure out the Bible. They're just a bunch of idiots." Well, we're trying to figure out your stupid Bible. Sorry, LilPP.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about Harry Potter,
because
it's talking about Harry Potter, right?
David, his claim will probably be, look at them arguing about something they don't believe is real. They're stupid.
Yeah. Right. That's right.
So we can't talk about any kind of entertainment. They think
you can predict what he's going to say. I mean, really.
So since you put it up, credit goes to Sydney Winston. Sydney Winston came up with a picture heavily distorted. I restored it, and so there it is.
From Spaceballs, Dark Helmet with
Darth Helmet.
Whose face is it?
Well, Dark Helmet. Dark Helmet.
Yeah, Dark Helmet. Yeah.
Dark Helmet.
Whose face do you think it is?
Rick Moranis was the original person, so
correct.
That's supposed to be Darth, right? I assume.
It's not supposed to be. It is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what he looks like? Oh my god.
Yep.
That's scary.
Yeah, Sydney's in the side chat. So Sydney, again, thanks a lot for shooting.
He kind of icky. Oh, interesting. Oh well.
Yeah, it was really distorted. So I fixed it, colorized it, and pretty much brought him back. I brought him back from the dead.
You know, it's funny how, like, obviously you see Darth, he's really starting to, make his way onto YouTube channels a lot. He's venturing out of his little domain, right? So, which means he's getting a lot of attention. And so it seems to be a lot of people from Discord are doing that, are starting to do that. Like Tom Rabbit, he's a real big Discord person, and he's venturing into these open streams like this a lot. And Danny is really comes from that crowd. So it seems like a lot of people from that group seems to be venturing on to these types of streams a lot now.
Well, Darth has done this before, going on people's streams until people were fed up with him just being rude and talking over people. Then he fell out of grace a little bit, and now for some reason, I think we should give credit to Tom Rabbit posting all of this. He probably did more for Darth than Darth could ever do.
Right.
To make people want to talk to him again. So
Yep.
So
he doesn't deserve the credit he get. Darth thinks he's a goddamn superstar, which is kind of a joke,
and he isn't.
Right, he isn't. But it's just like everybody says, it's entertainment. He's just he's entertainment for everybody.
He's
That's
a
all it
lulz
is.
cow. He's a lulz cow. That's all he is, and he'll never raise above that.
Yeah, people get more views if people insult. Others.
Tom Rabbit handed him a nice. I mean, did you see that the most recent debate he finally had with Tom Rabbit just the other day, and Darth showed his true colors because he would not answer questions. Tom Rabbit presented him with an argument, and Darth would not go there because he knew he would be made to look like an idiot. So he would not. And so far, nobody has gotten him to that. Really.
Well, actually, there's going to be one coming out soon, which is well worth the watch. I won't spoil it, but the next one, I'm sure it'll be the next one Tom does, and you got to check this one out. It's going to be good. It's going to be
be another one. Yeah, good.
Oh, there's one coming out soon, and it's the guy gave him a full-on argument. Darth tried to engage with it and got his ass beat.
Oh, nice. That's good. He gets his ass beat a lot, but it's just, what does Darth do? Anytime he gets in trouble, he just starts insulting. He calls people liars, and he basically either mutes. If he has the mute power, he mutes them. If he doesn't, he runs away. One or the other.
And if that happens, you've beat him.
Right.
Period.
And
that's it.
And I beat him pretty hard when I talked to him.
Just want to quickly welcome Beerus.
Beerus. Kerberos, as Danny would say when he's on this channel, but Cerberus everywhere else. So.
Yeah, well, mispronouncing my name is like the game.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kerberos, I like to think of him as.
Yep.
Not
so
the dog
speaking,
from the Greeks.
Oh. Yeah,
like the three-headed dog.
Yep.
Speaking of a beating, last night we did a thing on genetic entropy, and we kind of shit all over the idea of genetic entropy and standing for truth in his arguments. Did a pretty good job, and I got quite a few views. Hardly anybody watched it, but then I got like 300 views later on, so it was pretty cool.
I actually tuned into that one a couple of times.
Yeah, it's worth checking out, if for no other reason. The description in it has a whole lot of information in it. I think that anybody who's really interested in digging into the topic a little bit, but we're going to go further.
Over my pay grade, but certainly well worth the view. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Yep. I thought we did a good job. I don't know.
Yeah, you definitely. Like I said, you got free rent in SFT standing for poops because he did a response about it immediately. So it definitely did something. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. I guess before we forget, Midnight brought a article on epigenetics, and it led to a paper on something where they basically, we all know that if you stimulate your mind will be healthier. It's kind of anecdotal knowledge that if you stay active and you keep your brain active, that you're going to keep your brain healthy, right? And anyway, so apparently they found some of the genes that are responsible and some of the epigenetics that's responsible for that particular paradigm. And I put the links in the description for this. This is the actual paper. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, no, I just wanted to. Can I just say that a lot of cool people are in the server, and I have the desire to be with to. Never mind. I was making a joke. Go ahead.
No homo.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I haven't read the paper yet. Just brought it to my attention. There is a pop-sci article. I call it pop. There's nothing wrong with pop-sci. I mean, it's not a derogatory term at all. But you got to be careful sometimes when you read them. You want to go out and look at the actual paper. So let's say, okay, I don't know if we want to talk about that show off that you brought, but
it's not never mind.
Okay, no, I definitely don't want to do that live. Okay, that little joke was a bad joke. That was a bad joke. I'm a bad person. Okay, so where is it? Stimulating. Let's see. I'm trying to find the beginning of this. Sure. But anyway, the thing is, if a lot of you are definitely younger than me. I think.
Yeah, I'm 90.
Yeah, you're 90. But when you retire, if you think you're gonna lay around on a fucking couch and golf, your mind is gonna lose its ability to do anything if you don't.
I can speak on that since I've recently retired. Well. Recently, April 2019. I'm more busy now than I was before I retired for some reason.
This fucking retirement bullshit. I thought I was going to at least get an hour.
Yeah, I've got less time now than I had before.
Yeah.
Ironically enough,
I wanted to do all these things that I now have time for, and then a lot of other things popped up, so I'm still not getting to the things that I actually want to do.
Yeah. But I never will get to all the things that I want to do.
Nope.
But
I think I've done just about everything in my life.
Speed. Since you and I can now talk about this, I found a way around this. You know how you have your entire life you have a to-do list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently just threw that in the trash, and I made a list of the things that I have done so far. I call it my ta-da list.
Ta-da list. I like it.
Yeah.
You guys are doing retirement all wrong. You're supposed to get a rocking chair and then sit in it and mumble about how children are wasting their lives.
That's a good point, actually. The kids of today are just shocking.
They are shocking.
Or miss the good old days.
Top Dog, you've got no idea. No idea.
I'm 25.
Life before mobile phones was so much simpler.
Yeah.
I used to live that life too.
Back when cocaine was legal and
basically
HIV was unheard of.
It was so much better when I had a
wife all you wanted to, and no one would care. Life was wonderful back then.
Yeah.
It was so much better when I had to drive around the neighborhood looking for a fucking phone booth and then look for a goddamn dime, to stick in the phone booth and then try to remember their number.
Man, that polio was just so nice back in the day. We should bring polio back too.
Yeah,
polio. Yeah, polio was a great thing.
It's still a thing in some
speed,
countries, I think.
Speed. And you remembered all the phone numbers of your friends. You could just.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still remember.
If someone loses a phone, they'll be cut off from everyone because they have no clue how to get back in touch.
Yeah. Yep.
There's 911. You can't forget that.
Used to be able to drive around in an old beat up car, and in those days, the car could be a piece of shit, and you could drive around it. Nowadays, the goddamn inspections, the car practically has to be brand new in order to drive it, because it won't pass inspection. The old days, you could get your buddy at the gas station to give you a sticker, and those were the good old days.
Like if your muffler went, you just got some beer cans and you cut them, and you got some haywire.
Yeah,
and you wrapped it around your muffler.
Some people still do that.
So as soon as you guys leave Commieland and come out here where I live, you can still do all that stuff.
Oh, you still do that?
I do have a recollection of someone who lived next to my grandparents, and she was really proud. She got a nice secondhand Mini, and then she said, "Come on, let's go for a drive. I'll show you what it can do." And I got in, she got in, and the thing broke in two. So there's something to say for rules that your car has to at least be inspected every once in a while. It turned out that
in the old days you used to be able to go for a meal, get a couple of pints down the pub, and a prostitute, all for $5.
Yeah. So the way they used to repair cars if they rusted is just glue newspapers over it, paint them black, and that was it, fixed.
Yep. Oh yeah, I remember that too. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
hey, is anybody monitoring? Are you looking at chat? Well, who the hell's this Twinkie guy? He's saying I'm Darth. Who the hell is?
Yeah, going on? I don't know who the hell Twinkie is.
Darth never uses fucking sock accounts.
I had to time him out once because he was pissing me off.
Yeah. And Darth wouldn't use a name like Twinkie.
Nope.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. Yeah.
No, that's a gay name that Darth would never use that.
Yeah.
Wait. Are you saying it's still one of Danny's socks?
No, maybe it's an account that he uses to groom young boys. We don't know.
I'll write it in private chat who I think it is, and I think you'll probably agree when you see.
You know what? I agree.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. I haven't been following. Let's see whether I need to boot him again.
Yeah, Sidney Winston, you got a good question. If he shows up, I'll be more than happy to ask him about that. I'm usually the asshole in the room, so I'll ask him that question.
Okay, what question? Oh,
if anyone has asked him about the STDs that he brought into the marital bed from his adultery.
I thought it would be that.
It would be a good question because he always asks people, ask atheists how they know what is good and what is bad. So they can't know.
I thought you asked him that the last time when you had that conversation. You were on him that day that you did that long biblical talk on this channel. I thought you asked him that.
I didn't get to that. I did throw in the fact that I know that it's wrong to cheat on your wife with a guy.
Yeah. I thought you brought that up. Yeah.
And I kept calling him Gary, and he didn't respond to either of the two.
Yeah. He ignored all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so Atheist Junior has been putting out some cool content. And his channel is growing rapidly, which is kind of cool. Somebody else is trying to enter the studio, but I only have room for 10. So
who is it? I'll leave.
Who's trying to get in?
I think the one that just joined is Otangelo. Am I correct?
Yep.
Otan.
Yeah, but who else? Who else is backstage?
I don't know.
Well, you're the host.
I don't think any more people
come in.
You got to pay $30 extra a month to put 2 more people in backstage. I'm not going to fucking do that because that's all you get is that one feature for $30 a month.
Well, that's bullshit. Do you want me to leave?
Well, I'm heading out anyways, so I'll just bounce. Take care.
Okay.
Later, Augie.
Somebody can try to get in.
I'm curious, how do you refute nothing?
Refute nothing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Speed. Do you want me to talk about the crack or the religion, crack the code about religion? The other day I talked about in your email. They cracked the code for religion.
Yes.
I've just got you.
It's like Well,
AJ.
Religion. Oh, hey. Religion is basically like caring about a sports team.
Oh yeah.
Hello.
Yes. Hey.
And then the people that don't care about sports are basically like atheists, So why?
Hold on. Okay. Sorry.
So why do people that
window open?
Oh. So why do people that sorry.
You guys are over talking to each other. What the hell's going on?
I don't know. AJ's in here, and Top Dog is talking about religion and sports.
Anyway,
that was my fault.
A really good analogy that the different religions were like sports teams, and atheists are like people who just don't watch fucking sports.
But could still care about sports, and they could still do sports, but they just don't care about the sports teams.
Yeah, right. But talk all the time about it, right?
Because other people that care about sports teams keep on throwing it down people's throat that their team is the only one that's the best one or whatever.
Yeah, the reason we talk about it all the time.
Put the rules.
The reason we talk about it all the time is this, because there are science deniers around here that think the Earth is 6,000 years old, and we take exception to that. So that's what the channel's all about. So just so you know why we talk about you guys. I mean, it isn't like we think. I mean, I have no idea what's in the Bible, to tell you the truth.
Well, fortunately, I don't hold the view that the Earth is just 6,000 years old. So
did you change it recently?
It's 6,500 years.
Oh. God damn, Otangelo.
Hey.
That's funny.
Cut him some slack.
Could you be more precise, please, Otangelo?
Cut him some slack. 6,500 is closer than 6,000 to reality, okay?
It is.
He's improved.
That's technically true.
Yeah. We also kind of talk about it because of the superiority complex that you guys seem to have. That only your God is the one and only God, and you got the high ground on morality and those kind of things. Kind of upset us a little bit.
I just looked it up. So the Earth was created on September 17th. 3928 BC, According to John Lightfoot, he published that in 1642. It's he did a calculation, and that is the exact date of the creation.
Mm-hmm. Well, one amongst
if you know that much, why didn't he just make a year zero of his own calendar?
I believe Bishop did it.
I don't know. I also found that it was created on September 6th, 3114 BC, according to the proleptic Julian calendar.
Bishop Usher said it was created at 9:30 a.m.
Yeah, on a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, somehow knowing the year can tell you the time of day.
How about you, Antangelo? You seem to have it right down to the at least year. What do you got?
No, I'm not to that precision, so I'm fine with about 6.5.
Oh, well, you went from 6 to 6.5, so I figured you
get better.
Could be pretty accurate.
Give or take 100 years, right?
Well, why is it 6.5? Why is it like 10,000?
Well, because there are two versions of the Old Testament. One is the Septuagint, and the other is the traditional. And there is that discrepancy. And if you posit 6.5, then you go in line with the Egyptian timeline. You solve that problem. There is a video on YouTube about precisely that topic.
Oh, video on YouTube. Okay.
Is that where you got it from? I guess.
Yeah.
Is that you get a lot of your stuff from YouTube? You should watch this channel more. Well, actually, you come here quite a bit, but you should watch the good science ones. You might get something.
Well, I am all
PBS
ears.
Eons.
I am all ears for good science, Lori.
Yeah, you should spend some time talking to Rob, right? Sentinel Apologetics. Spend some time talking to him. He might help you.
Tangelo, have you had your ears checked lately?
Well, I had a conversation with Rob recently at Agnostic. What is the name of that channel?
Digital Gnosis. Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
I had that conversation with him.
But probably not enough. I think you should talk with him some more. He's a pretty good guy. He knows the Bible very well.
Yeah, I'm open to have another conversation with him. Yeah. No problem.
He is a good guy. He's been going on Praise's channel a lot lately. So
but Lori, even if he is right, and I am fine with those which hold that the old usurp, the earth is old.
Yeah.
That doesn't lead you to your position still.
I wasn't saying I want you to. I didn't want to lead you anywhere. I'm just making a suggestion, and I've heard you say that that position is okay, but I was just making a suggestion. You should talk with him. I think it's a better position myself than yours.
The word gnosis is like gnocchi, which is delicious.
Yeah, certainly
refutes, wanted to say that.
Certainly refutes young Earth creationism, doesn't it? That's the point I think that was being made.
Right. Yeah, that would be my point, but I didn't want to say that because I didn't want to get Antangelo upset. So,
good point.
Oh, Lori, I know there were very good reasons to hold to an old Earth interpretation, and I've held that view for some time. So I'm fine with anyone that believes that the Earth is so old and the universe. I have no problem with that.
Right.
Excellent. Good news.
Can I just say real quick, thank you to Speed and the guys on this channel for giving my channel a shout out the other day. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You've got some good content. I really like it. So
I heard. Yeah, which I know you said you watched some of the videos of me like sort of interviewing people. Which videos did you watch? The one of me and the girl, the Christian?
Yeah.
Rebecca?
Yep. And I think there was one other I spotted in. They're all really good interviews and good talks. There were a couple others that I liked too.
I think
but I can't remember right now.
Yeah, Rebecca's one that I would really like to talk to, and I looked it up. She's only 2 hours ahead of me, so there's not much of a time difference.
Yeah, well, she's pretty eager to talk to me again. So
she seemed like a pretty nice person. I spoke to her the other day.
Yeah. You know, I mean, we had sort of disagreements at the end, but you know, she did seem like a very nice person, and I feel like maybe she's somebody who's I could get through to when it comes to science and trying to teach her some stuff, because I gave her links of scientific papers and stuff and asked her to watch my debate, and she did all of that stuff after we got offline, and she's been emailing me about it. So she's not just somebody who ignores all the stuff you try to tell them, you know.
Cool. Keep in mind that the only reason she does it is to try and refute everything you shoot at her. I'm not convinced that you could make her
break through. Oh, I agree.
Look at actual science. Not convinced.
I agree, but at least she's more willing than somebody like a Kent Hovind, you know.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is that she wants to write a book to bring atheists to God.
You can only hope that they drink, right?
Yeah, some of her answers were a little.
She wants to write a book. She wants to write a book to help atheists come to God. My first question about that would be: so you think you can do a better job than the authors of the Bible?
Oh, walking fish.
That's a good one.
Maybe a bit snarky, but that's what it comes down to.
You know, I wrote in the comments, because the name of her channel is Bread of Life, I said, I feel like I missed an opportunity to ask her opinion on the picture of Jesus found in burnt toast. I mean, you get it? I'm here all week, guys.
I got it. I loved it. I did. I was muted at the reaction time.
Okay.
I thought it was Mary.
I'm distracting myself trying to find Walker's channel. What the hell? Why don't I have it in my list?
Look in the freaking private chat there, Speed. I gave you everything you needed.
Oh God!
I wonder if Jesus had a birthmark the shape of a slice of toast.
I need a drum set with a rim shot capability.
Yes.
There.
Yep. We need to get you a soundboard like Peter has.
Yep.
Oh no, let's not start.
On my channel, I just had my first video reach 1,000 views, and then I uploaded a video that was a live stream of me responding to Kent Hovind's Whack an Atheist against Aaron yesterday, and the video is at 700 views now. I think you guys showed my comment about that, but the growth on the channel has been faster than I expected, definitely. But I've been trying to put out a lot of content, you know.
Yeah, you had like 50 a couple of weeks ago, right? No.
Yeah, I just barely reached 100 subscribers at the start of May, and then the debate happened May 2nd, and I'm already almost to 230 now.
Yep, cool. It's good to grow.
So, yeah, I appreciate any bit of help, you know. And Aaron commented on the video, which I really surprised me, you know, because I feel like the reason he did that is because he feels like, I'm just speculating, but he feels like he can just continue doing his series. And, you know, because I feel like I probably said a lot of the things that he would have said in response to the Hovind video. So he doesn't even have to mess with that, you know, so he doesn't waste time responding to that video, because that video is bullshit. I don't know if you've seen it, but Kent is so petty in that video. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's saying that Aaron doesn't have any degrees or any education or anything, even though he's said before that, you know, like in the last debate, he said that, you know, he knows Aaron has an associate's degree and stuff, and he's going to school right now, you know, and Kent, the projection of him saying that, you know, he's pretending to have more qualifications than he actually does is ridiculous, you know.
Kent doesn't have any degrees at all. He's got that.
That's what I'm saying. You know,
PhD. That's about it.
So why is that relevant?
It's not really
relevant to what?
To anything. I mean, I see all the time atheists bitching about Kent has no credentials, and I mean, I've seen so many times people bitching about having no credentials. I have no credentials, so what? What's the problem?
Okay,
but people think he's authority.
It's because other people come after us for not, or like Professor Dave, like James Tour and SFT, and all those guys went after, say, oh, he's not a real professor and all this bullshit. So I mean, it's kind of tit for tat, and it doesn't make any difference. It depends on what you know. It doesn't depend on, well, Jason Torn would make a good argument for a degree.
I have a response to this.
I would say it comes from both sides. It's not only atheists criticizing theists about their credentials. It's as well. It's coming from both sides. But I think even if you have all the credentials, that doesn't mean that you have good inferences in regards of what you know.
Can I respond to what you said, Otangelo?
Go ahead.
Okay, this is my response to that. Yes, it is sort of a both sides sort of thing. Although in the video I was responding to, it was Kent saying that Aaron didn't have any degrees. So and then Kent is presenting the idea that he has, is a doctor that has 4 PhDs and 15 years of teaching experience. And then Aaron was responding to that claim. And also there's a difference between somebody like I may be a layperson and Kent, I think he's also a layperson. The difference is that I'm not challenging the scientific consensus. I'm agreeing with them. If you're challenging the scientific consensus and you don't have an equivalent degree to those people, then I question the relevance of what you're saying.
And if you have
that's the distinction.
Why is scientific consensus relevant?
Do you know how a scientific
it's the majority
consensus
opinion
reached?
of the experts in the relevant fields. That's why.
It's just a quick clarification. A consensus generally is considered an opinion. People who think that a consensus isn't important or doesn't mean anything have absolutely no idea what a consensus is or how they're developed.
And possibly very little reading comprehension.
A consensus is essentially a reflection of what the experimental data and the observations in some field point. So the consensus isn't just a bunch of people making a bunch of guesses. It's a bunch of people that have loads of formal training in how to research and apply particular methodologies to understand the world or within some particular field. It's these people, these kind of people with the relevant expertise, examining all of the same data, the same experiments, doing experiments, examining everything and arriving at exactly the same conclusions. And so they're all collectively saying these conclusions are obviously worthwhile. We should obviously work forward from these conclusions, and thus you get a consensus. So if you're going to try to dismiss a consensus, you would have to dismiss all of the full suite of data within whatever field you're dismissing the consensus, because that's what a consensus is derivative from, the full suite of information and data we have within that particular field.
Plus, on top of that, if you actually have the information to disprove the consensus, you can become famous.
Okay, let me just
scientists spend their careers trying to overturn consensuses.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just quote here. Never mind that almost all the most groundbreaking and world-changing scientific and mathematical breakthroughs, from Galileo to Newton to Pasteur to Pascal and Einstein, were made by people who rejected conventional wisdom or went well beyond what everybody knows. So, usually you use consensus when there is no good evidence for something.
No. And by the way, the people you mentioned, they didn't go against conventional wisdom. They just disagreed with what people thought of the time. But the thing is, they see this plays into this already refuted or this oft refuted objection to people who point out that, when there's a consensus somewhere that, the consensus has been wrong before. Yes. And the funny thing is that actually strengthens the argument for siding with what a consensus says rather than working against it. Because what it shows is that scientists are actively and consistently trying to overturn the consensus, and that when there is substantive data which does so, they change. Well, the consensus changes, which tells us that the consensus is something we can trust, that these people, we can trust them. We can trust what they say because they've consistently shown that when the data changes, so do their thoughts and so do their beliefs and so does the field. And it begins to work from there.
I could quote here from Michael Crichton. He said, "Let's be clear, the work of science has nothing whatsoever to do with consensus. Consensus is the business."
Nobody made that claim.
Can I finish, please? Science, on
Sure.
the contrary, requires only one investigator who happens to be right, which means that he or she has results that are verifiable by reference to the real world. In science, consensus is irrelevant. What is relevant is reproductive results. The greatest scientists in history are great precisely because they broke with the consensus.
Exactly.
But
nothing that you said is disagreeing with anything that we said. The problem is that hold on, because I want to make a point to something that he said. He was responding to me, and I just lost my point. Nobody's saying that a consensus is important to doing research. A consensus, other professionals don't even really cite a consensus. They cite the research. The consensus is something that is generally cited and should be cited by the laity, the people who aren't the professionals. Because the thing is, the academic literature and the academic scholars are the standard. So if you don't have the proper credentials or background to meet that standard, then you must rely on that standard. And if you don't, if you choose to deviate from that, that's fine. But unless you have substantive data backing up your deviation, nobody's going to take you seriously. And that's the problem with creationism and intelligent design. It deviates, has absolutely no substantive data whatsoever to back up its deviation, which is why the academic consensus has never followed it, ever.
If you have evidence, you don't need consensus because
consensus is derivative from the evidence. If you have evidence, you will get a consensus. What you said just makes no sense.
Let me try and steelman your position. So, in science, you can be right, and that is a thing, and that will make you famous. But in order for people to see whether or not you're right, that takes consensus. People need to check your claims, need to verify your claims. When they can verify your claims, then you've got consensus. Then, and only then, you being right is going to be meaningful within the scientific world.
Peter,
am I correctly?
Peter,
hold on. I
verified,
just wanted to check with Leo.
You don't need consensus anymore.
Oh, Tangelo, wait. I just wanted, Leo, was that me correctly steelmanning your position?
Essentially, yes. But the statement that Otangelo made is just absolutely absurd, and it demonstrates he doesn't understand what a consensus is. He said, well, if you have evidence, you don't need a consensus. No, a consensus is something derivative of the evidence. The evidence is so overwhelming that all the professionals agree with the evidence, i.e., you have a consensus. What you just said, I'm sorry, is just asinine. Completely asinine.
I don't care what Michael Crichton says about science. The dude who wrote Jurassic Park, I mean, is that really who you're citing? Because I don't care what he says about scientific consensus.
Well, notice how instead of providing a cogent response to what we're saying, he's just throwing out quote mines.
Well, I would like to know what he thinks about climate change. Because that has a scientific consensus of almost 100%.
Well, I mean, so does evolutionary theory.
Well, yeah.
And relativity, if we're going to go that far.
Well, yeah, I mean, relativity, the single most confirmed scientific model, physical model that we have to date collectively in any field is often referred to as SU3 cross SU2 cross U1, or the coupled gauge field explanation or gauge field description of 3 of the 4 fundamental interactions in nature. The standard model of elementary particle physics.
Hey, you want me to jump?
Anybody, hang on a second. Does anybody want to bail so that Jason can get in?
Someone did.
I was
somebody
just
did. Okay.
Yeah,
you only have 9 people in the room.
You only have 9 people in the room. Administrative point, guys.
No, I got 10 in.
Excuse me, guys.
No, you got 9 on screen.
Excuse me, guys. I did boot Top Dog like I talked about earlier, so Jason was wanted in. So it's nothing against you, Top Dog.
I was just going to offer for me to bail too. So if you need me to bail, Scott, just let me know.
Well, it still won't let you in because there's 10 people, there's 9 people, 1 person in the back room and 9 people in the room. So it's not going to let anybody in until somebody actually leaves StreamYard. So
well, the other person in the back room would have to leave.
Okay, now somebody left. So David left.
I love Jason's accent. Can I just say that? It's a great accent.
So Jason can pop in. We got room for 2 now.
So David and Top Dog, I'm just letting you know, I just put you out so that we can bring more people in. I appreciate your understanding. David and Top Dog,
What?
I don't know.
He muted mid-sentence.
No, it sounded like he muted because because it almost sounded like there was a playback there.
I'm not sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was on YouTube. I'm at my office, so I'm in a different location. No, I mean, I can't believe that we're going on about this topic about the non-value of scientific consensus. I mean, I think Leo articulated it well that certainly evidence is the main driver, but evidence is the basis for how we reach scientific consensus. And
exactly.
It's the whole concept of standing on the shoulders of giants, the famous phrase, I think it's a Galileo phrase that
Newton.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm sorry.
Jason, let me answer to you. When you have scientific
I don't think Jason finished.
That's fine. Go for it, Tangelo.
When you have scientific facts, the facts talk for themselves. You don't need interpretation or consensus.
But
if you don't have the facts, you have some kind of evidence, but not conclusive evidence. Then you require some interpretation of what you have.
What are facts?
I can give you quote you here. In 1795, Alexander Gordon of Aberdeen suggested that the fevers were infectious processes and he was able to cure them. The consensus said no. In 1843, Oliver Wendell Holmes claimed puerperal fever was contagious and presented compelling evidence. The consensus said no. In 1849, Semmelweis demonstrated that sanitary techniques virtually eliminated puerperal fever in hospitals under his management. The consensus said he was a Jew, ignored him, and dismissed him from his
made your
post.
point.
Good.
All what I want to say is that sometimes just one person has a better interpretation or understands things better than the consensus. So
I don't think anybody denies that.
Nobody disagrees with that, Tangelo.
Do you have one from the 21st century?
No, but I mean, it doesn't even matter because I mean.
Well, I have.
Check it out.
The consensus.
Can you let Jason
100
respond?
years. No, let me answer to 80s Junior. The consensus 100 years ago was that the universe was eternal, and then came some smart guys like Lemaitre and so forth, and they provided evidence that the universe actually had a beginning.
It was a consensus?
I think it was. Lemaitre. No.
I want to hear what Jason was saying. I'm sorry for interjecting.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Your examples are good in the sense that we have a buildup of science that is outlining evidence that supports particular hypotheses, and then individuals come along and discover or come up with an alternative hypothesis that sets that consensus on its head. But the only way that information then becomes absorbed into consensus is everybody, if all that group of individuals who have contributed to that consensus, they evaluate that information. So let's say in your example of like evolutionary theory that your premise of intelligent design, creationism, etc., is correct, then those individuals or yourself should be able to present that evidence. And then if that is evidence that is valid and can be confirmed by the mass of other scientists, then eventually the consensus will modify its position. But if you can't do that, then that's why the burden is on somebody who is opposite of the consensus to provide overwhelming evidence that would refute the hundreds of years of evidence that have formed that scientific consensus.
Exactly.
And I want to correct something that Antangelo said real quick. The competing theory wasn't between the universe being eternal and then having a beginning. It was between the universe having a steady state and then there being expansion and change.
Yeah, being static.
Initially,
also,
the universe was thought to be static, yes.
Yeah, the difference also is that those people that overturn the consensus, like if you want to cite like Galileo, they did that using the scientific method. They did it using the scientific method, but creationists don't know how to do the scientific method, so they will never overturn a consensus.
I also wanted to say, he said that we don't need scientists to interpret things. That's actually false. Like with general relativity, we know that it works. But the thing is, there are different solutions to it. And depending on which solution you utilize is going to depend on what kind of reality you work with. So the way that you are interpreting general relativity plays heavily into whether or not it accurately describes the reality in which we live. So yes, we do need people to interpret this data, because if an astrophysicist came to even me with a bunch of information from a radio telescope, I would have no fucking clue what I'm doing at all. So this idea that we don't need people to interpret this data and everything that we get from experiments is just patently false. Lay people can't do that. They simply do not have the technical understanding of the subject to do it. Interpretation of the data is just as important as getting that data. We got to know what the data says once we get it, and the people that are going to tell us what it says need to be skilled enough and have a strong understanding of whatever subject this is to be able to accurately parse out what the data is saying.
That's right, and this is a good supporting position of like what I constantly have been saying, which is the importance of formal education. Because if you take a complicated subject like evolution, evolutionary theory, evolutionary biology, people have been doing this for a long time, and there is an established amount of science that has been shown to be true. If you're somebody who's never even taken the preliminary classes that outline those basic fundamentals, then you come along and say, oh, I have this idea, almost guaranteed that idea could be blown out of the water if you took a 101 class.
Exactly. Like people who say, with John Maddox, who says that consciousness causes wave function collapse. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe he stated that he does prefer the Copenhagen interpretation. But the funny thing is that in the Copenhagen interpretation, wave function collapse isn't actually a physical process. It's just this mathematical tool that we utilize for deriving states out of probabilistic combinations of states. So for somebody to say that they adhere or they prefer the Copenhagen interpretation, and then to make a statement like consciousness causes wave function collapse, indicates that they don't even understand the basic mathematics underlying what this physical model is, let alone how to utilize that physical model in the real world.
Do you understand it, Leo?
Better than John Maddox does, yes. Do I understand it as well as a PhD or even an undergraduate? No, but I do have a pretty fair... I would say yes. I think that most people in here would probably agree. Obviously, I'm not a professional. I will be the first to concede that. I've never admitted that I was. But I would say that I have a fair understanding of the subject, yes.
What does that mean, a fair understanding of the subject? Do you know the math behind that?
Well, Richard Feynman says...
Quantum mechanics? Yes, I do.
Richard Feynman said, if you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics.
Yeah, that's not strictly true. But
but what he meant was if you understand the ontology, like that statement was developed, almost 100 years ago, back before we even understood what quantum mechanics. Now we do know what it is. We know how it works, and we use it every day. But that also refers to the ontology of quantum mechanics, not so much its epistemology. It's not what we can know with quantum mechanics. It's the nature of reality and why it operates that way. Which, for the most part, it's probably nomological. That's just the way reality is.
Yeah, I do think it's possible to understand the individual mechanisms of quantum mechanics, but understanding it as a whole and understanding how it fits into relativity, I don't think we know that yet. But
general relativity, no.
Right? Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have a theory. Yeah, we don't have a theory of quantum gravity yet. If I would laugh if somebody said they understood it, and then after I was done laughing, I'd be like, all right, let me see your math.
Although there are models.
If people could come up with an idea or a premise that supports, Otangelo, what you've been talking about with, like, setting the evolutionary theory concept or that approach on its head, then there should be no problem presenting that to the consensus of science to let them evaluate it. And then they would say, wow, this is something new. We need to consider that. And then opinions would slowly change over time. I mean, this is what happens like with plate tectonics, like nobody thought plate tectonics was a valid theory. And then in the course of like 15 to 20 years, the entire consensus changed on that topic because evidence was shown to prove that.
It's the same thing.
That was after the guy who proposed it died. He was already dead before people accepted it. He was laughed at in his time.
Jason, is it the consensus in science that the quest of how life can come from non-life by unguided means is an unsolved issue, and that
you're breaking up.
You're roboting a bit.
I don't like how you're wording that.
Is
you're back. You're good.
Is in your view there a consensus in science that there is not even a hypothesis or a model which leads from non-life to life by unguided natural means?
Well, there are hypotheses.
Yeah, I think there's hypotheses on that.
There definitely are. I mean, RNA world first is a hypothesis. Metabolism first is a hypothesis. These are all physical models. They're incomplete.
Are you saying like, is there an abiogenesis hypothesis? Yes, there is.
Oh yeah, more than one.
I mean,
or a model or a compelling model.
I would say yes.
I think there is a compelling model for it. Now, the question is, like, if you're going to say, is it a model that we at 100% certainty know is true? I would imagine that most biologists would say, no, that's not the case. And if you have an alternative model.
Excuse me. I just want to say, I can't believe this. Otangelo, if you're asking if there's a model for these hypotheses, different hypotheses for abiogenesis, then you have not done the research.
Well, another problem is he's asking us for a model. We consistently ask him for a model, and they can't ever provide us with one.
Otangelo, don't you dare quote again. Just summarize what you want to say, and tell us who said it.
Well,
or put a link in chat.
Okay, Eugene
don't you dare.
I don't think he's going to provide the full quote.
Well, I am not quoting him. I'm just saying that Eugene Konin, he said there is no plausible coherent model and even not a validated scenario for the emergence of life on Earth.
Otangelo, is there even the smallest possibility that you might be wrong?
Of course I can be wrong, but the evidence I think is on my side.
Yeah. So you can be wrong that your God exists. In fact, your God, it's possible that your God does not exist.
Okay, but wait, let's look at this, right? There are different abiogenesis models, right? Natural ones. They have their own evidences. They just don't have enough to make it the main hypotheses of the actual theory to build consensus.
None of them can overwhelm the other. Completely.
Yeah, and there is the hypothesis of intelligent design, which the only evidence they have is Bible.
Well, I would say that's more an assertion than a hypothesis, because a hypothesis has some working evidence or observations. They have literally nothing.
Okay, that's fair.
Which is why I find it weird that Otangelo is asking us for a model, but we've asked him and LilPP and all them for models, and they tell us, well, we don't have to have a model. We don't have to have an explanation of the explanation. Well, neither do we.
Sounds like flat Earth to me.
How did God create life? How did God create life?
No.
What sort of mechanism or process did God use?
That's not the primary question, Leo.
Yes,
the issue, no, it is not.
Yes, it is.
But you don't even know the age. You can't even decide on the age of the universe, Otangelo.
What do you think those hypotheses about life being created are? They're talking about mechanisms.
What does that matter, the age? The fact is that we know by our... Can I answer, please? The fact is that we know by our own experience as intelligent beings that we can make blueprints, machines, and factories. Sure. Unguided random mechanisms cannot, and that's what.
How do you know that?
Precisely see. Well, the evidence in science.
What evidence?
Over 40 different models and hypotheses in regards of abiogenesis are trying to provide a compelling explanation of the origin of life, the information in DNA itself, translation, all these kind of things. And there is simply nothing. Science doesn't even know.
Hold on. I want to ask Otangelo a really quick question.
That is an argument from ignorance.
Well, no, hold on. Hold on, Otangelo.
Yes, it is.
Okay, no, Jesus fucking Christ. It is an argument from knowledge of over 70 years of scientific investigation.
I'm muting you if you don't let Leo talk.
So, Otangelo, is science a process?
Yes.
Do we always get the right answers right away?
No.
Do you know how long it took to get the model for classical electromagnetism?
We are not talking about that.
But, I'm not saying that we're talking about. It's an analogy. Do you know how long it took to get the model of classical electromagnetism?
Irrelevant.
Now, how so? Because you're claiming that, well, we haven't solved abiogenesis yet, therefore nature didn't do it. Well, if we go back to the 1600s, we didn't even know that electricity and magnetism were combined, and nobody would have known how to do that. Does that mean that they weren't actually combined? Well, obviously not. You're trying to argue from the fact that we haven't figured it out yet, that therefore it can't happen. We don't have a theory of quantum gravity. We've been trying for longer than we have for abiogenesis. We've failed to have a model. Does that mean quantum gravity is God?
We know enough to conclude.
Hold on a second, guys. Sydney has been in the room for a while. Have you said anything, or did you want to say something?
In the side chat earlier, Artangelo asked me why I said, or why I texted that he was an irrational person. And when he's ready, I'm ready to have a conversation.
Okay, let me just answer to Leo, and then you can answer to that. Leo, it is not a matter of time. Science has enough evidence to know that the possibility to have life by unguided, non-intelligent means is basically, the chance is basically zero.
What evidence?
Yeah,
what evidence shows
nobody
that?
thinks that except you and a small number of creationists.
And if the evidence shows that, then why is origins of life such a robust field that continues to make improvements yearly?
It doesn't make any
Yes, it
improvements
does.
at all.
Yes, it does.
No.
This is where
Yes, it does. Numerous origins of life researchers have come out in the last 5 years. Yeah, they've all come out. Craig Venter's one of them. He said this field is very robust, and its funding actually continues to go up. I mean, you obviously do not follow the academic research here.
Okay, Craig Venter said that one of the biggest problems is that there requires to be selection, and in order for him to make his artificial cells, he needs to select the basic building blocks. That is a big problem because there was no natural selection prebiotically to select the basic material. Can I finish, please? There was no prebiotic selection to select the basic building blocks which are required to make life. That's a big problem, and there is no solution at all in regard to that.
Yes, there is. Selection can occur on molecules.
Hold on, Leo.
Research is demonstrated.
Angelo, what does Damer and Deemer's hot springs hypothesis paper say about selection? What does Nick Lane's book, I can't remember the name of his book, but what does his book say about the concept of selection in prebiotic Earth? You should be able to tell us because you're a researcher. You go out and you search papers and you read them, and then you come up with information, and then you type it into the side chats. What do those papers say?
You brought them up. What do they say?
No. What from your recollection, what do those papers about abiogenesis and selection say?
You brought them up. What do they say? How do they disprove what they just said? In other words,
you don't know because you haven't done your research. All you ever do, from my experience of the quotes that you provide, is misread an abstract or misread a conclusion, and don't read things in the middle, and then tell us about how impossible abiogenesis is. Why don't you read Damer and Deemer? Why don't you read Nathan Lane? Why don't you read Jack Sostak? And then tell us about what they say about selection.
I can tell you what, Jack, I can tell you, can I answer, please?
Where did these people go wrong in their research?
Leo, can you stop, please? I would like to answer. Jack
well, this is an open room.
Well, I would like to have the opportunity to answer.
Oh, you will. Maybe not right away, but you will.
You are talking all the time, okay? So Jack Sostak, he said, it is virtually impossible to imagine how cells machines, which are mostly protein-based catalysts called enzymes, could have formed spontaneously as life first arose from non-living matter. So now, Scott, let me ask you, you brought up the paper of Deemer. How does it explain how selection operated prebiotically? Go ahead.
Why don't you go do the research, and we can then
you brought it up. It's your claim.
You did not read it, sir. You did not read it, or you would be able to tell me.
Let's step back for a second from the very minute information. I want to go back to what Leo was saying, that essentially, Otangelo, is what you're saying is that if science has not come to a conclusion definitively on the method of how life began, that means that you think that there's evidence that would suggest that it's some supernatural thing? I mean, if science hasn't concluded definitively the actual mechanisms of how life originated, but we have a lot of good ideas around that, that gap doesn't mean that therefore it can't ever have happened, or if the fact that we don't know the exact mechanisms of how it has happened doesn't mean that in 50 years or 100 years we're not going to discover those. That doesn't mean that what we don't know right now leads us to a conclusion that it's some impersonal or some personal being that created it.
Well, that is a nice exemplification of materialism of the gaps. But
There's no such thing.
But let give me you an analogy here. Let's suppose you have the goal to make a house, and you have to use the required materials for that. If you don't use your intelligence to select the materials, how could that happen without intelligence?
That's begging the question.
So the analogy is that the earth and life is a house, and in order for the earth and life on earth to form, that there must have been a creator that created that intelligence, because intelligence can't come from non-intelligence. That's the whole premise.
Can you maybe simply answer my question, please?
Ask the question again. With your
so if you have the purpose to construct a house,
it is begging a question to use that house as an analogy, because
houses are inherently built by humans.
Minds. So you are begging a question that the universe is created by a mind.
Because you're saying, how could if you had to build the house?
Okay,
if you
Jason,
had to build the house, how would you build?
Okay, Jason. Let's suppose you have the purpose to build a house. Yeah. And let me suppose you have even the blueprint to do so, and there you have the specification of all the materials that you require to build that house. Okay, so you have two possibilities here. Either you have people which select the materials, or you don't have the people which select the materials. Do you think someone selecting the materials is necessary or not?
To build a house? Sure.
Good. Okay. In regards of the origin of life, in order for you to have life, you need 4 basic building blocks. That is amino acids, nucleotides, carbohydrates, and phospholipids. But on the prebiotic Earth, you had all kind of materials laying around. And also these basic building blocks, they are complex, like RNA and DNA is made of ribose, phosphate, and the nucleobases. You need to join them together, and you need to select the materials which compose them. But you had all kinds of materials prebiotically laying around. There was no selection mechanism there. So how do you explain that?
Okay, big assumptions right there. You're making a lot of assumptions on the mechanism of how those components could have come into being. And many people have spent their careers working on and understanding the natural processes that may uncover that. The fact that we haven't come up with the exact blueprint of that formulation doesn't immediately lead us to jump to the conclusion that it could never have happened.
Jason, can you think for yourself?
I'm thinking for myself right now.
No, you are not.
Why not? I'm making logical assessments of what science has uncovered, and the fact that science hasn't uncovered a certain component doesn't lead me to jump to a conclusion that may be illogical. I can easily say we don't know for certain, but one thing I think I'm fairly certain about is it's not some supernatural event. That it
How
will
do you know
be.
that?
Well,
How do you know that?
Everything that we have ever uncovered scientifically, eventually we uncover naturalistic processes.
For
thunder, look at the old example of thunder. People used to think thunder is from a god. We know that's not the case. We can go through thing after thing after thing that we thought was God created, and then we discover that there's a naturalistic explanation for it.
I got a question for you.
So we don't have an explanation for the origin of life. We don't have a natural explanation for the origin of the universe. We don't have an explanation for its fine-tuning. We don't have an explanation for consciousness. We don't have an explanation for morality. We don't have an explanation for biodiversity. Basically, materialism has no explanation for anything.
What do you keep bringing up materialism? Like, I don't know if anybody here is a materialist. This has nothing to do with materialism. You're just committing a fallacy. Well, because science hasn't explained it, therefore it must be God. And then when we say, well, no, the only thing that we have ever actually been capable of utilizing to explain things seem to be natural stuff. So if we encounter some problem, the most likely answer is that it will turn out to be natural.
And actually, science has explained all this.
That's inference to the best explanation. Inference to the best explanation is not and cannot be fallacious. So assuming that something we haven't explained yet will be natural based on the precedent that the only things that have ever been utilized at any point in history to accurately and consistently explain anything has ever been natural, that those explanations that we don't know when we do know will be natural is an inference of the best explanation. Nobody at any point in time has ever been able to cogently or consistently verify anything supernatural, which has an incoherent definition to begin with. And because of this, there's no parallel precedent or verified phenomenon indicating that it's even possible that it could interact with the natural realm. You're working from literally nothing and then projecting all of the faults in your worldview onto us when we just don't share them. We just don't.
And just to clarify, that's literally nothing, not absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and just because there's not evidence of a natural explanation doesn't mean there's evidence of creationism, because science uses the null hypothesis. And also to say we have no explanation for biodiversity, are you serious? Like, seriously? It's evolution.
The absence of a natural explanation doesn't inherently or intrinsically grant a supernatural explanation. If you're positing a supernatural explanation, the onus is on you to provide positive, substantive data corroborating that view. And thus far, people that posit supernatural explanations have not ever once done that. We've actually tried, governments across the world have tried to confirm things like remote viewing and all these supernatural powers, and they've come up empty every time. So yeah, you have nothing.
Well, so do you detect in this thing about science doesn't have an explanation, a kind of an equivocation on the word explanation? I'm just kind of throwing this out to the group. On the one hand, we want to provide steps and explanation and materialistic mechanisms. And then on the other hand, there's this big cloud called God that wants to be stuck anywhere there's a gap in knowledge or an opportunity to say science doesn't know. Don't you see? I see that as an equivocation that's going unspoken. So I would like to ask Otangelo, what is your definition of the word explanation? What is sufficient explanation?
Well, I would like first to answer to Atheist Jr. The thing is not simply that we don't have an explanation for the origin of life. The thing is that we have evidence that natural means are an incapable mechanism to explain the origin. Well,
this is the third time you've said it, and you still haven't provided that evidence. You just point to the failings of natural explanations to sufficiently do it, and then point that means that it.
Can I finish, please?
But you've never provided the evidence that it is, in fact, that it can't be natural.
You interrupt
calm down.
me.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say calm down. Let him talk.
Okay. Atheist Jr. The thing is that evidence is against natural, that there is
what evidence?
No evidence. Wow. Okay, I rest my case. Guys, go on.
I couldn't hear what you
have still not learned to wait until
you still
others
haven't provided the evidence.
Even if you disagree. You have to to have good conversations.
You should learn to provide evidence.
Okay.
I do have good conversations. I just hold people fire. And when they make the same statement over and over and over that they've got evidence and then never provide it,
okay,
I'm going to continue to ask you to provide it until you do. And I will hold your feet to the fire until you do.
Leo pretty much said what I would have said anyway. So
I give you evidence once again. I've given it already.
No, you didn't.
I can repeat it.
No, you haven't. You've said, well, the natural world hasn't explained it, but that's not evidence. You're assuming that the inability of the natural world to explain it intrinsically means it's supernatural. But you haven't demonstrated that. Where's your evidence?
You gave us the Michael Crichton quote. You gave us a quote from Michael Crichton.
Listen, you two, stop it. Fucking stop over talking to each other, both of you. Be briefer, both of you. Stop it.
Could you just
and let me take an opportunity to welcome Randolph Richardson and say howdy, sir, and we're glad to have you in our live stream today.
Hey, hello. Thank you for a very warm welcome. I appreciate it.
Can you hear me speak? Can you hear me speak?
I saw the atheism refuted stuff there, and I'm thinking, why is he focused so much on science if he's refuting atheism?
Sure. Please, could you reaffirm the basic rules that you have for the Hangouts?
Okay. The rules are, what the hell were they? I don't fucking know.
I wrote them down so we could remember.
I know. I'll put them on. 3 simple rule with the shit you put them on. Okay. Okay. No reading for more than 60 seconds. Answer the question you're asked. Repeating your point over and over does not mean it's still your fucking turn. And no over talking each other should be the 4th rule. We're going to keep adding new rules till we get to 100.
I got two.
God damn it, Otangelo and Leo, both of you are guilty of going on too long. I mean, try to state
really. I'd say about a minute and a half.
I didn't get to hear what he was asking me because he was breaking up. Otangelo was breaking up, and I couldn't hear what he was asking me.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, I'm done bitching at y'all.
If we could just reset from there.
Okay.
Everybody take a deep breath.
Would you like that I repeat what I was saying to you, Atheist Junior?
Yes, because it was breaking up and I couldn't hear what you were asking me.
Okay. I am not saying I disagree with you that there is simply not yet evidence for the origin of life. I am saying that the evidence and what has been investigated so far, rather than bring closer to explain the origin of life by natural means, the evidence demonstrates that it is not possible by natural means.
What evidence?
I don't think that's true because they have multiple hypotheses about what could be the origin of life, like RNA world and hydrothermal events and all these different explanations, and they don't know which one is true. That doesn't mean they don't have an explanation. And science is a process, and just because we don't have the answer right now doesn't mean that they won't figure out what the answer is. And I don't hear what this evidence against it is, because science, there can't be evidence against naturalism because science only works with the natural world. So the claim that it's evidence against naturalism doesn't even make sense to me.
I got a couple questions for Otangelo I've been trying to ask forever.
And I think the fact that we're here is a pretty good evidence that there was some kind of origin for us.
Obviously. I mean, yeah, that's...
Also, as for life coming from non-life, like the individual molecules or individual parts of your body are not alive, but they make up a system that's a living organism.
Well, on that point, it's interesting. People are even saying a similar thing, like consciousness comes from conscious beings, but I don't see sperms and eggs having any consciousness in them.
Well, sperm know that they need to get to the egg and break through it, and they sort of race each other to get there first. So I think maybe they have a primitive form of consciousness, like there are different levels of consciousness, like, you know, single cell like Euglena that can tell when they've been absorbed by a predator that they're being eaten and stuff like that.
Right. Which seems to be consistent with evolution overall.
I don't think I think that's just your interpretation and kind of.
So, Atheist Junior, is it possible that eventually, rather than life coming by natural means, it was created by God?
It won't be figured out by science unless scientists can invent a theometer.
That's not what I asked you. I asked if God created life. Is that a possibility?
That's a supernatural explanation.
I asked
asking you if it's
possible.
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because gods are man-made mythology.
How do you know that?
Because every holy book on earth was written by men. And I apply Occam's razor to the, if you have two options, one is God created man in his image and divinely inspired people to write holy books, and the opposite is that man created God in his image. Occam's razor would suggest that the simpler explanation is the second one, that man created gods. Especially because...
Can I jump in real quick? Because if we're going to talk about possibilities, first of all, we need to solve whether or not there even being a God is a possibility, and
why not?
We haven't.
Logically, it's possible, yeah.
Atheist Jr. just said it's not. He thinks it's not possible. So
well,
I have
to ask Atheist Jr. whether he meant logical or physical possibility.
Logically, it could be possible that I am omniscient. But that doesn't make me omniscient. That doesn't even create a possibility for me to be omniscient.
Well, if it's logically possible that you could be omniscient, which it is, then there's a possibility that you could be omniscient.
No,
yes, there is. So what's the logical contradiction with you being omniscient?
Well, what's the
there's nothing logically contradictory about that. A logical impossibility simply means, does it violate the law? Are there intrinsic contradictions? If there's not, it's logically possible. It's logically possible that God exists. It's perfectly logically possible.
Yeah, that's a completely different.
At some rare moments, I agree with Leo.
What I'm trying to say is, you have to make sure that you first solve the case whether or not there is a God or not.
No,
and if you have solved that case, then God becomes a possibility on acting on anything.
Peter.
What do you? You're saying that you have to demonstrate God exists for him to be possible?
Logically, Leo, something that doesn't exist cannot create anything.
Well, I don't recall
my
saying that.
There's your logical possibility,
but it's still logically possible that God exists.
Yeah, it's still logically impossible that God created anything until there is
I don't think
a
there's
God.
any logic. I don't think that's logically impossible. There's nothing logically inconsistent with God creating the universe.
Oh,
A God that doesn't exist cannot create.
Peter,
well, we're not talking about actuality. We're talking about possibility.
Let me stimulate that. Peter, first you need to start with the premise. What is the premise? What are the possibilities? And the God explanation isn't logically contradiction. Isn't a logical contradiction. So it is an epistemic and ontological possibility. So you have to consider it from the set go.
I'll try and dumb it down. And I really love it that Randolph is here to help me out with this. So
well, Peter, I might surprise you because I've got some views that I think might differ from yours slightly, but go ahead.
No problem. So we see an ongoing construction in the little video that Randolph is now providing, and there are two possibilities. Either Randolph is constructing something or God is constructing something, which is logically more possible.
That has nothing to do with what we are asking right now.
Well, that was the way I framed my answer. Was between two possibilities.
The first question is, what are the possible mechanisms to explain our existence? I posit that God is an option and no God is an option. There are two possibilities. It's a true dichotomy.
It's not a proper dichotomy because you need to rule out the possibility of polytheistic possibility of multiple.
That would be included in the gods. So he's just saying that it's either one or more gods do it or no gods.
No, Leo. He said God, not God.
Well, I would bet that Angela would probably agree with the clarification that I gave, though.
Okay, I give you that, Randolph. I'm positing God or gods, plural, or no God or gods.
What if it was intelligent aliens? How do we?
Then that would be no God.
Yeah, but in that case, I would agree that Otangelo has formed a proper dichotomy. Yep.
Okay, guys, just a point of administration. This is kind of a 12-minute warning. We wanted to give a 15-minute warning, but time went by. We're going to shoot it in the head right at 4 o'clock. So just don't be surprised if we interrupt again to say that we're gonna end the show.
Okay, I want to cut in and talk over everyone else because I've been holding on to questions for like 40 minutes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Antangelo, if there was no evidence for God, does that mean it has to be a natural explanation?
Well, we go with where the evidence leads. And if there is no evidence for God, then you go to the alternative, which would be that no God is the explanation for our existence.
But it could still be something supernatural, even if not a God, right?
Oh, he said, I mean,
Well, he was referring to specifically a God, but even if like we got evidence that God did not do it, which I don't think anybody could get that necessarily, but I would argue that it's, again, at least logically possible that something supernatural created life or the universe that wasn't God.
No, I'm going to give Antangelo some props here because he bit the bullet on that. If there is no evidence for God, therefore must be natural. That's how he works in the opposite direction.
That was exactly what I was going to say. If you're going to work from the evidence, then I would like to see the evidence for God.
We used to, like creationists used to argue the missing link constantly. Why are you still not arguing the missing link?
What do you mean?
Well, it used to be the go-to argument that evolution was false because there is this missing link between like other apes and human beings, right? Therefore, evolution wrong. But we found a bunch of
you have completely changed now the topic.
Yeah, I'm asking different questions.
I mean, can we stay at the same topic? I don't.
Well, no, he had a series of different questions for you. They might vary from topic to topic because he hasn't gotten to talk for a while, and he had a variety of questions he wanted to ask.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so creationists used to argue the missing link because science didn't discover enough connections between other apes and us yet. But since they found a bunch of connections, no one makes that argument anymore. Why are you not making that argument now?
Well, I have an entire own explanation of biodiversity, and that brings us to a creator which created each species as a special creation and gave them a limited range of speciation, of possibility to adapt to the environment. And I believe that humans, they are special creation which are unrelated to apes.
Oh, so you would argue a missing link then?
No, I would argue that the entire biodiversity is explained to the direct action of a creator which created each species as a special individual species without I deny the common ancestry and the tree of life.
Okay, so no link between human beings and other apes.
Yes, correct. No link.
What about kinds? Why are you not in here arguing that then?
Well, it is not my specialty, and we were not talking about that right now.
Well, no, I was bringing it up as an example because that used to be the old God of the Gaps argument, right, that everyone went to. Now we're going to abiogenesis because the missing link has been knocked down so thoroughly over the last 30 years that it's ridiculous.
Can I ask a question for everybody in here? Everybody, Otangelo included. If God is such a good explanation for some things, then why aren't we like using God to explain things we've already explained? Like, why don't we develop a better model for electromagnetism that has God in it, or relativity that has God in it? Why is God only being Why is God only being inserted into the places where we don't have explanations, but never being used to usurp the natural explanations that we currently have? If God is such a good explanation, it's almost like it's just a God of the gaps.
You're mixing up things, Leo. One thing is what we are evidencing or seeing in the natural world. Like, for example, we know that the strong and the small nuclear forces, the electromagnetic forces, and the gravity, they have specific values, and some
no, they don't.
Huge. They have of course they do.
No, they don't.
Wow. Of course, they have specific values.
These we value specificity with our number system.
Come on, Theo! Didn't you see Ghostbusters? You know you're not supposed to cross the streams.
But there is no intrinsic valueness to reality. We ascribe value.
Leo, you simply dismotivate me completely to have any interaction with you because you're incapable to permit that your interlocutor finishes.
Okay, can I answer his question?
No, hang on a second, please. Hang on a second, please. Just Professor Scott, could we just also go around everybody at the end to have a last word? Is that possible?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, just go ahead then, atheist.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason is that God has perfect explanatory power, but zero predictive power. So you can use God to explain anything.
I disagree with
Okay.
you, Atheist Junior,
Explain
and
why.
I said already why. We don't have to make predictions in regards of things that we already know. And we know that intelligence has the capability to make blueprints, machines, and factories. And that's precisely an analogy to what we see in a cell, where we
it's
see
an
a
argument from
blueprint.
analogy.
Wow. Can I finish, please, Leo?
Well, we
Can
have
I
limited
finish,
time, and
please?
I'd like to
I
hear.
mean, it's not like we haven't heard these talking points a million and a half times before.
Okay, moderation. We're going to go around
Same
the
song,
room.
same verse, but a little bit louder and a little bit worse.
We're going one at a time around the room. We're going to wrap this up soon. So, Professor Scott, did you have anything?
No, I just encourage Otangelo to read the Hot Springs Hypothesis for the Origin of Life by Damer and Deemer, and also to read Nick Lane's book. But I'm going to have to remember the title of it. But it's his latest, I think. So anyway, so do we want to? I'll let you pick who gets to do the go around there. Speed.
I'm reading you guys in order. So Peter is next in my list, my lineup. Peter.
I just have one thing. Maybe we should add to the rule that if someone asks someone else a question, that a third person doesn't jump in and answer the question, because that really cripples the conversation here a lot of times.
Okay. We'll add that as rule number 37.3.
Yeah,
okay.
It's frustrating. And then when someone is asked a question, we should allow them to answer the question.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, pairing two people and then letting them go at it for a certain amount of time, and then moving on to another two might be a better format. So it would be like Otangelo versus Peter, Otangelo versus Leo.
So Otangelo versus me wouldn't be that necessary, because we're going to do that in a separate show anyway.
Okay. Okay, Peter, that's it.
Which is why I shut up for most of the time.
And now we have Otangelo is an argument. I'm not sure who that. Is that Simons?
Yeah,
that's Mr. Funk.
Otangelo is an argument for ignorance. I just wanted to point out that some of the fallacies that we've been listening to include argument from analogy, begging the question, argument from ignorance. These are standard retorts that are based, are just philosophical arguments, nothing to do with the actual empirical nature of the topics itself. If you can't at least form arguments into a valid form, you do not stand a chance of having a sound argument. And I think that we've had that demonstrated here today, time after time, with multiple people. Thank you.
Well, can I answer to that?
Nope. So Cerberus is up next.
I guess the only thing I have left to say is Atheist Junior, I have a suggestion for you. Don't say sperm have consciousness. That's pretty loaded. Say sperm has agency.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm done.
Okay. So, and now I'm probably going to regret this, but it's Otangelo's turn.
Okay, let me just answer to Simon. I disagree with you. I'm not making an argument from ignorance, and I give you just an example. The universe is finely tuned for life. Fine-tuning requires a fine-tuner. Therefore, the universe was finely tuned by a fine-tuner. That is an argument from knowledge, not from ignorance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Atheist Junior is next.
That seems like a lot of assertions, and I will just say, check out my channel, guys, and I'll move it on to the next person.
Leo,
what's up?
You got any last things you want to say briefly?
Yeah, sure. So humans can utilize nuclear fusion reactions to generate heat. So we know that an intelligence can do that. So therefore, every star that exists in the natural world was designed. Stars can't form naturally, even though that's a well-described process. Humans can also distill water. So we know that an intelligence can distill water. Therefore, cycles of evaporation and precipitation, that there has to be an intelligence. There's rain fairies in the clouds that are doing that because only an intelligence can do it, because humans can do it. So, any anything that humans can do, then that means only an intelligence can do that. There's no possible way the natural world could do it. Nope. No, that makes no sense. Also, the universe is finely tuned specifically for life, but that same universe can't develop life on its own. But it's fine-tuned for it. It's fine-tuned for it.
Okay. Jason.
Yeah, I would just only briefly add that the larger positions of like, how do we know things from a scientific perspective, and how do we come to conclusions? What is scientific consensus, and how does that associate with things that we don't know, and how we move forward to, uncover review, perspectives on existing hypotheses and future hypotheses, I think are the most important aspect of this discussion. And the only thing I would add is that I mentioned Otangelo in the chat that I'd love to have a direct conversation with him on these topics, maybe at a later time.
Okay, and Randolph, I muted you because you were making all kinds of noise.
Oh, did I forget to mute myself? I apologize. I've been trying to make sure I remember, so I appreciate you doing that.
Your turn.
This has been an interesting conversation, even though I only caught into the tail end of it. What seems strange to me is here's Otangelo presenting a logo that says "Atheism Refuted," and yet he keeps focusing on science. So, and I think it's an important point that science and atheism are two different things. While it's true that there are many atheists who are also very fond of science and very well studied in it, there are also many atheists who have no interest in it at all. So it is not a requirement of atheism, in case there's any kind of implied meaning or assumption being made there. So, and people might be wondering a little bit about what I'm working on here. For those who don't know, the future studio of the True North Talk Atheism call-in program that Neil the 604 Atheist and I will be hosting. I'm working on the east wall right now, and what I just put in is a header above a window. So the rest of the wall I'm going to be working on next. And if you want to find out more about the show, it's at www.truenorthtalk.ca. Thank you very much for hosting this, Speed, and everybody here, and everybody in the audience for being here. Thank you.
Cool. So,
by the way, Randolph, there is a requirement for atheism. Don't you know? It's eating babies.
Yeah.
Okay. I reject that. Nope. That's not a requirement.
That's what a baby eater would say.
Well,
yeah, that's just what a baby eater would say.
Even if that would be a requirement, if atheism is true, that's absolutely no problem. You guys can eat babies.
We'll get to that in a second. But Leo Filius, I think maybe you've strayed into the Hannibal Lecter definition of atheism.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. I like babies.
So I think what Otangelo is touching on is that with atheism, there is nothing there that gives us a moral guide. Yep. All of us atheists, we're on our own with it. And I am one of these people who is opposed to cannibalism.
And also, I would just urge people to look up the Bishop of Bath and Wells.
Okay.
Also known as the baby-eating Bishop of Bath and Wells.
Oh, did he have religious support for that?
I would imagine he did. He was a bishop after all.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The Catholic Church comes out in defense of raping little boys.
Anyway,
I love eating babies. Now, if your worldview is true, there is no problem with that, right?
Yes. No, not true. Morality is normative. What are you talking about?
Actually, there is an objective problem with it as well. I think there is my own personal sense of morality. I think it's not a good thing to do.
Just your opinion. Just your opinion. It's your opinion against mine.
I'm trying to answer you here. Let me finish, please. The objective problem with it is that it creates a lot of human health problems when you eat other humans. And that's well documented in the medical sciences.
It's almost like
there's a problem. Why is that the problem?
It's no problem. Okay, I guess if you don't want to live long enough, then maybe it's not a problem for you.
No
problem.
And it's also it's almost like there's a consensus there, Randolph.
Yeah,
okay, we're kind of getting away from the whole format.
Anyway,
of summing things up, and I'm going to end this in about 2 minutes. So
let's get back on topic. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. On topic. So it's my turn. Atheist Junior, stick around backstage for just a minute. Just want to ask you about something, and we are going to shoot this thing in the head now. So.
And remember, folks, I think it was demonstrated here today what I'm about to say. Science may not have all of the answers, but religion has none of them.
And Top Dog says, stay curious. And I say, goodbye, cruel world.
I'm leaving you
I
to
say
that
penis.
You got to add that.